In 1993, we were introduced to the World Wide Web, which eventually became what we know now as the Internet. And it changed the world that we live in. It gave birth to big tech, and big tech then became the driving force of everything in the future. One of the mistakes I made most recently is getting very excited about genome sequencing and genome editing and the future of taking cancer out of my body. And there was no place for big tech in it. And in addition to that, you had the Food and Drug Administration, who just wasn't going to allow people to stick needles in people's arms and then see what happens in 10, 15 years. So that was a mistake. But the Internet could not be stopped. One of my first introductions to what the Internet and what big tech was going to bring me was this. This is an iPod. Many of you probably don't know what it is, but it was a little device that I could put on my belt, and I could load 1,000 of my favorite songs into it. And it had a 10-hour battery, and I could scroll on here and play any of my songs with earbuds in my ears, and just a magnificent experience. It cost me $399. And then, as you know, it was eventually replaced about 15 years later by the iPhone, and that cost me $649. And that was the evolution of what we know as big tech. So what is the next step? Well, I think everybody recognizes it's artificial intelligence, but I really don't think they've really grasped what that means. What it means to me is that over the last 40 years that I've been a part of, there are a group of companies who have been gathering data. It used to be it sat on my computer, and then they said, you don't want to store it on your computer, put it in the cloud. And in essence, what they were saying was, now your data is our data, and we're going to make billions off of it. And that's what they've done. So that's where we are now. Now what's happened as a result of NVIDIA and their GPUs, now they know what to do with that data. They want to take our data and sell it back to us in the form of information and knowledge. So what's happened is all the knowledge of the world is now available to us. So what is the next step? Well, I believe the next step was introduced to me in early March by Jensen Huang when he just briefly mentioned that he was building a nano. Well, I remembered that word. I think it was Mork and Mindy, and Mork would say nano, 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 nano. Well, Mork, that was Robin Williams, was telling me what was going to happen and change my life in 2025. Nano, nano. So what is a nano? Well, a nano is going to be a device about the size of a large pack of long cigarettes that's going to sit in my pocket. And on that device is going to be all the knowledge in the world in whatever subject I want it to be. So I'll own the Nano. I'll buy the Nano probably from NVIDIA. They'll make it. They'll sell it to me over Amazon.com or maybe Best Buy. So I'll go in and buy that Nano. I'll probably pay somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 for it. And then I'll go and I'll load onto it through the internet whatever wealth of knowledge I want. Let's say what I want is all the knowledge in the world that has been accumulated about trading stocks on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ or whatever. All the knowledge in the world. And then what I'll be able to do is to communicate with that knowledge that's in my back pocket. Think about this. How do we learn? Let's say that 1,000 of us go to a conference on investing in the stock market. And after that conference, the speaker finishes, they say, are there any questions? How many people of the 1,000 people in the audience will raise their hand and go to the mic and ask a question? Well, I would guess maybe 100 of them, okay, 100 out of 1,000 will raise their hand and they'll go ask, why didn't the other 99 whatever, why didn't the other 90%, why didn't they go and raise their hands? Well, what's that saying that I believe it's credited to Abraham Lincoln? Sit and say nothing and be thought stupid. or speak up and remove all doubt. Well, that's what keeps most people from learning. Well, what if you didn't have that stigma keeping you from learning, and you had this nano in your back pocket that you plugged an earbud into, and you conversed with it? Okay, let's say we went to a Trading Views chart and we looked at it, and it was the S&P 500 over the last 20 years, and I started asking my nano, what does this mean? And he says, why don't you go back to 2020 and draw a trend line from the lowest lows all the way up into 2024? And I did that. And then he says, what does that tell you? And I would say, well, it tells me that eventually the market just continues to go up. Okay, now I can ask my next question. How do I determine or predict when it's going to go from its higher high to its next higher low? And we will have that conversation. And he will introduce me to the MACD and the relative strength index, and he will point that out to me. And then he will tell me, why don't you go to pick a stock? Let's focus on NVIDIA. Now let's go to their financials, and let's look at the projections for their earnings and their revenue and see how that relates to their future price. And we learn, and we converse, and we talk, and it's all between me and my nano, and I don't have to worry about raising my hand and be thought to be stupid because I'm asking a different question. Now, the only way we learn is when someone gives us an answer and we don't understand the answer, we ask another question. That's how a nano is different from Google search. We converse, we interchange, and as we do that, my nano that has all the knowledge about investing, the nano learns as well. And so when I refresh my nano on a weekly or a monthly basis through the internet, I learn from what all the other nanos on investing learned in the past 7 days. So my learning capability just escalates. And that's what a nano is all about. And why is it going to happen as opposed to genome sequencing and genome editing? First of all, we don't have the Food and Drug Administration that we have to deal with. But even more importantly, there's money in it for big tech. That's who I'm going to have to eventually pay for the data that they took from me in the past. But that's how I'm going to pay for it. And so that's how they're going to make money. So that's why it will be driven to me and you and the rest of the world. So that gives you an idea of how a nano will work for investing. But let's think about most of the world isn't really interested in investing. And I got to thinking, how would that change? How would that affect other parts of our life? And I got to thinking about what is the largest movement that I know of that the whole world is involved in and it has a passionate energy for. It's religion. It's religion. I mean, people show up in the thousands, in the millions, every Sunday to Christian, every Saturday to Jewish. They want comfort. How many of them, while they're sitting in the church, raise their hand and says, Pastor, Rabbi, I have a question. I need an answer. It doesn't happen. They just walk out and they still deal with their pain, their suffering, their questions. What if they had a nano? What if they had a nano and they could speak to their God? And they could explore the pain and the suffering that they're feeling. And all the knowledge of the Christian religion, the Jewish religion, the Hindus, it could all be at their disposal. And they could gain comfort. How would that change our world? How would that maybe console some people who want to go demonstrate, or maybe who want to go get a gun and kill somebody, or burst into a school, or a thing? Could it possibly change the world for the better if we could learn anything that we wanted by asking questions and not having to raise our hand and prove to the world that we're stupid? No, this is going to change your life. And what you need to know is who's going to be behind it. Amazon, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Meta. They own the data. That's who I'm going to buy my data from. Okay? NVIDIA. That's who's going to sell me the Nano. That's who's going to make me the Nano. Then somebody's got to put the voice to that open AI or that other form of large language. Who is that? I think it's SoundHound. Google said they're going to come up with one to compete with SoundHound. How is this all going to affect our world? It's going to be it's going to change education. Let's assume you want to become a physician, a brain surgeon, and you have a choice of going to a class and listening to one professor, or you have a choice of getting a Nano and listening to all the professors. Every piece of knowledge about brain surgery is in here. And what if you could also buy a set of goggles or glasses and your Nano could see what you see, whether it be on a stock chart or an open skull and someone's brain open. And you had all the knowledge in the world available to you to perform that brain surgery. Or you had all the knowledge of the Bible available to you to help console you on the loss of a loved one. You're 78 years old and you're sitting at home by yourself, and life has passed you by, and you're asking God, what do I do now? Now God can answer you. Can give you some reference in the Bible. Can give you some reference that you can change your life. This is a Nano. Actually, this is my Samsung phone that I've had for years that's antiquated. But it's going to be in your pocket. It's going to have all the knowledge in the world. So, okay, now you know that. How do you invest in it? You dig. You find out, what is a Nano? How's it going to work? Who's making the parts that are going in this Nano? How dependent will Jensen be on Google and Microsoft? And how will that equate? How will it come together? Who is going to be the supporters of this? Is it going to be stopped by the Food and Drug Administration? Is it going to be regulated by the government? These are the things you need to know so that you know where to invest your money. This is how I spend my time. Thinking, connecting the dots, understanding. Just one little reference was made to a Nano. I want you to go to your Google search, and I want you to look and say Jetson Nano. And then I want you to go and see where you can buy a Jetson Nano today. And what it is it's a developer's kit. And what NVIDIA is doing is saying, okay, we've got the little device. Now, you teach us how to make it a marketable product to the rest of the world. Just go look. It's going to cost you $499, and you can get one. I'm going to get one, but I'm going to get one when I got somebody working for me who knows how to build it, who knows how to program it, who knows how to put all the knowledge of the investment world in my back pocket so that I can ask any question and get an answer. So I can ask, how do I build an algorithm to alert me when NVIDIA stock's going to go up 2%? How can I do that? And the Nano will tell me, and we'll do it. Because I'm going to have all the knowledge in the world at my access. All I got to know is the right questions to ask, in what order to put them in, and where to go get the help. I'm reaching out. I'm reaching out to a major investment company with this idea of how I want to change best of us investors. Yesterday, I spent 5 hours telling them how I need their help. One of the major Wall Street investment corporations, how I need their help building my Nano. that's going to give you everything you need to know. I'm going to build a billion-dollar company off of this nano. Let's talk about this more in the future. Why don't you come to my Friday Stock Talk and let's talk about specifics, how you can build a nano. I'm Kerry Grinkmeyer. I'm a retired financial advisor, and I'm having the time of my life.